he got a hold of Barbara. Was my mentor was giving a radio interview, and he happened to be one of the listeners, and he contacted Barbara through the radio program. And another interesting thing that Chris said was he eventually attended a crystal meth support group, like a 12-step group for crystal meth and crack users. And privately, amongst themselves, probably not to the counselors because they always lie to them, but amongst themselves, just about every single other crystal meth and crack user described a similar outcome, where they were compelled to go to the child pornography sites, compelled to get involved in that kind of entertainment, if you will. So what it shows is crank allows these negative intelligences to take over a human body, sometimes temporarily, sometimes permanently. And it provides them a medium through which to affect changes here on the surface. There was a case in San Diego, I lived there for many years, where in what we call East County, there was a prankster couple, Hispanic couple. They were babysitting the niece, the woman's niece. And the child was suffering from prolonged abuse from this couple. Finally, it got to the point where they filled up a bathtub with scalding hot water, and then they dropped the baby into it. It was a toddler. And then the skin literally melted off the child. It was horrible. I saw on TV they brought the couple in to court for an arraignment. And you could just see, looking in their eyes, it's like, lights are on, but nobody's home. It's because they had become possessed and taken over. There are countless examples of this. I have a female abductee, my lab friend, who works in a state hospital, essentially an asylum for violent criminals in California. And what the counselors are told over and over again by long-term crank and crystal meth users is they hear voices in their heads. These voices tell them to do things. These voices tell them to harm themselves and harm others. It's such a common thing that it's taken for granted. And let me tell you a story about a personal friend of mine. This guy was a reptilian hybrid through and through. He was really into the gonzo films where women would be, slapped and abused and carried around in briefcases. That's sort of emblematic of the reptilian mindset. You see, one thing you have to understand about the reptilians is they have this concept of human ownership. The reptilians have a concept of human ownership which manifests across the board, from the literal standpoint of hosting and taking over somebody to organizing global institutionalized sex slavery. All across the board, the reptilians have this concept of human ownership. And this is manifested in a lot of these so-called porn films where women are abused and women are carried around in briefcases like they're cattle or toys. That's another facet of the reptilian overlordship is the diminution and the marginalization of the feminine principle. Women and children are prey to the reptilians and the reptilian hybrids who've, through genetic manipulation, have risen to positions of power here on the surface. And I was warning Joe about all this. I shouldn't say his name, sorry. Let's call him Phil. I said, I was warning Phil about this. I go, listen, man, you've got all the harmful hallmarks. You've had all these experiences and abductions, and you're borderline. You got to watch it. You know what I mean? You got to avoid watching these kinds of videos because it's going to really do a number on your mind. Well, Phil was also a crankster, and he went off on a week-long binge of crank, and the end result of which, when he came down, when it got to the point where he was physically incapable of ingesting any more crank, he kind of was in the process of coming down in a completely paranoid, delusional state of mind, during which he told me that he left his body, he shot up into the sky, he came down in a place that he believed to be somewhere in Los Angeles. He came down into the body of a man in an alleyway. And the moment he got into the body of that man, he lunged after and he strangled to death the first woman that happened to be around. So after prolonged crank use, he exits his body, comes down into a man, and he just immediately goes and assaults a woman and presumably kills her. And the way he was describing the experience, it was like he was like reliving the experience. Some of these guys that are reptilian hybrids that have this this aspect of dominance over females and sadomasochism and dominance and submission. When you hear them talk about women, red flags pop up. Like when I see a great-looking gal, wow, she's a great-looking gal, right? Look at her eyes. Now, someone who's like a reptilian hybrid, full-on reptilian hybrid, their reaction is entirely different. Hey, yeah, you see that chick? She was a great-looking gal, wasn't he? Oh, yeah, I saw her. What I would do to her. You see the difference? You see the mindset where another guy could look at a gal and have this, well, aesthetic beauty. Look at her. God's creation. Someone else who's a hybrid with this reptilian concept of human ownership, what I do with her. You know, it's a different mindset, but you have to be aware of that, you gals especially. These reptilians and the humans they work through, they can be very charismatic, they can be very charming, but I really believe that a lot of times the reason some of you gals are seemingly addicted to negative, abusive guys is because of the reptilian hybrid male's ability to manipulate your kundalini. A reptilian human hybrid has the ability to astral travel at will. They can astrally rape people. Like some of you gals meet some guy here, and then like a week or a few days later, he starts coming into your dreams and having intercourse with you. That's very common. I call them astral rapetoids. And the ones who do this repetitively, I call serial rapetoids. It is an innate capability that reptilian human hybrids have. Not all of them, some of them. Because some of them are literally coached and taught how to do this by their reptilian familiars. They can see into these other dimensions. And I mean, you would see nobody around them, but they can see reptilians around them. And they will teach these hybrids to do these things. So a lot of times you gals, if you get like involved with a really negative, abusive guy, chances are he's probably one of these reptilian human hybrids. A reptilian human hybrid has the ability to stimulate a woman from across the table or across the room. He has the ability, and the woman will just think, wow, chemistry, things are really flowing between us. It's like that's an ability, a latent ability that person has. So just be aware of it. They're everywhere. I'm here to tell you. Some of the byproducts that female abductees have. How much time do I got left? Half an hour? Okay. I'll really give you the hardcore stuff now. I'm just getting warmed up. Some of the byproducts that women experience that have these reptilian experiences are, like I said, a heightened libido for a short, certain period of time. But also, their olfactory senses can be manipulated by the reptilian. Many of these reptilians are very possessive of their human female abductees. They don't want anyone, not even a human boyfriend, a human male, having anything to do with this woman. Again, it's that reptilian concept of human ownership. I've known of boyfriends who've been attacked by reptilians. Guys in the shower, taking a shower, and next thing you know, a reptilian pops up, claws him, right? It's because the boyfriend is involved with what the reptilian believes is its mate. So one of the ways the reptilian gets around that is it manipulates the olfactory senses of the female abductee to the point where she's repulsed by male human pheromones. She just can't stand the smell of them, doesn't want to be around any humans at all, human males rather. Now, conversely, what can happen to human females that have reptilian experiences, the reptilians, it could be a part of the agenda where they want the woman to have other partners. In fact, sometimes have frequent partners. It's not unusual for women that are having these experiences through no fault of their own, and there's no shame attached, but sometimes they become very promiscuous. And not surprising considering what's been going on. So what the reptilians can do, because like I said, they feed off the energy of people having sexual intercourse, they can